Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. I hope everyone is doing well today. We'll get started in just a few minutes here. I'm going to let some people trickle in as they always do. While we're waiting for everyone to trickle in, I'd love to do some introductions in the chat. I'll drop the questions for people who are coming in a little bit later. I would love to hear where everyone is calling in from, what you do for work, and what is your relationship with LinkedIn? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Have you not logged on since last month? You can let us know in the chat. Hi, welcome to everyone who's joining us. It's so nice to see some familiar faces. Well, familiar names, I guess. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. And I'd love to have some intros. You can just drop in the chat. Make sure you have it set to everyone, not just to hosts and panelists. I'd love to know where you're calling in from, what you do for work, and what is your relationship with LinkedIn, which is our topic of the day. Texas. Hi, Rob. Welcome. That is also how I currently use LinkedIn. I don't post too often, so I'm really excited to learn more about posting on LinkedIn. I imagine that everyone else is here for some in Portugal. Hi, Judith from Portugal. Love LinkedIn. Happy to hear that. David, San Diego. Well, welcome everyone. For everyone who's just rolling in right now, we'll get started in a few minutes. You can introduce yourself in the chat. Make sure that you are posting to everyone and not just to the panelists, so we can see where everyone's from and kind of get a survey of where we are at for LinkedIn. Oh, the French Alps. That sounds really nice. I am Lindsay. I'm the head of community events at Outsite, and I am calling in from New England, which is in the northeast of the United States for our international folks. It's the fall here, so the foliage is out. It's really pretty, but it's starting to get a little cold for me, so hopefully I'll be heading somewhere warm soon. Oh, Boston. Hi, Melvin. I lived in Boston for quite a few years. Happy to have you. Chelsea is in Rwanda. Atlanta. Awesome. So great to have everyone here. So we're going to get started in just a few seconds. The chat will be open during the presentation and I'll be monitoring it. So if you have any questions during the presentation, drop them in the chat. We are going to have some time at the end for question and answers. Oh, hi, Leanne in Denver. It's good to have you all here. So like I said, I'm Lindsay and I work for Outsite. The mission of Outsite is to create a world where everyone can design and live their best life with the freedom to live and work anywhere. Right now, that includes co-living and co-working spaces, services designed for remote workers, and our community. So welcome, happy to have you all here. Like I said earlier, I never know what to post on LinkedIn, so I'm really excited to have Molly here. Molly is a LinkedIn strategist, and she's going to talk to us today about how we can use LinkedIn to become a thought leader in our respective fields. So I will turn it over to Molly now. Molly, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Lindsay. Really excited to be here. You will definitely learn more about me as we get started, but I'm super excited. I love LinkedIn. Really helpful to hear from everyone in the chat, just where you're at when it comes to LinkedIn. Keep it coming. It's just helpful for me to have some context as we go along. But everything I'm going to share today is from my own personal experience. And now you'll learn I run a LinkedIn agency. So now the work that I'm doing with clients to help them get the same results that I got. And there's a lot here. There's so much here. So I'm going to do my best to get through everything, but we'll definitely have time at the end. I'll make sure to leave plenty of time at the end for questions. And then at the end, I'm also going to share if this was really interesting, if you're like super excited and really jazzed up about LinkedIn, I'll share how to work with me. So I don't think I've met any of you, but if we do know each other, send me a note after and say, hey, I was at your workshop. But I'm Molly. This is a picture of me in Bali. I actually stayed at an outside site for 4 months back in 2021. I am both a coach and now an agency owner and a digital nomad. So I'm currently in New York City, but I've quite literally traveled the world, and Outsite is a really special community. And it's just so fun to be back teaching. And next slide, love to write. So love to write, love to create content. I've been really, really lucky to have some pretty big features of my work. I've been on the Today Show, featured in InStyle a few times. I had a column on Medium and Thought Catalog, and was also in Bustle. And before I found LinkedIn, I ran my business by word of mouth, blogs, Instagram, and other social media. And to be honest, it was just really, really inconsistent. And so I have to credit, it was a friend that recommended I try out LinkedIn, and I did. That was back in July of 2021. And the first month on LinkedIn, I actually made 10K selling 2 coaching packages. And I was like, what is this? And so I decided to double and triple down on LinkedIn ever since. And my business has just been growing, growing, growing. And as a result, I've now started my LinkedIn agency. So it's a bit about me. And you might be here at this workshop and thinking, not another social media platform that I have to figure out, not another complicated algorithm, just not one more thing to be adding to my plate. And I hear you. I absolutely used to be in the same spot as a business owner or a freelancer or a contractor or just a human. We wear a lot of hats, whether that's marketing, sales, actually delivering the results and product for our businesses. And so I remember that feeling. And now, like I said, I run an agency. LinkedIn works so, so well. It was just the best return on my time and energy of all the places that I've marketed my business, that I've now created an entire second business. And I support founders and entrepreneurs doing the exact same thing that worked for me. And what's also exciting, no matter who you are in the audience, no matter what your business is, I can attest, I did all of these things with my first business, and I'm doing all of these things for my second business, and it works. So I've seen literally every single industry show up on LinkedIn, and we're going to talk more about that as we progress. But today,
Molly, sorry to interrupt. We have some messages in the chat that the slideshow hasn't started. So I just wanted to make sure that we're on the right slide.
Oh, that is a great point. Okay. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. I think if you just hit slideshow in the top right, it will bring us to where we need to be.
Okay. Is that moving now?
No, it's not. You might have to make sure that you are sharing we can see the presentation.
All right, let me start over. Sorry, guys, that's super weird.
No worries. We think that maybe you're sharing your tab and not Chrome or the screen. Oh.
All right.
This is looking better. Do you want to just go one side forward or back, and we can?
Yeah. Oops. All right. How interesting. Okay.
There we go. So, I'm seeing them now.
Okay. So this is a picture of me in Bali where I stayed at the Outsite site. This is the press that I talked about. This was the first business that I ran on LinkedIn. I will talk about more life coaching, dating coaching. This is the second business. And today, okay. So today, Instagram and other social media is really just fun for me. It's where I post about my travels. It's where my friends can follow me. But today I 100% run my business on LinkedIn, and I do some email as well. So I truly, truly believe that the world in today's era belongs to the content creator. I think those that are sharing their stories online, have mastered the art of online writing, really get to write their own future. And especially on a place like LinkedIn, where the distribution is just so, so wide and the organic reach is so, so high. Really, really, that is the future. I also think the future of entrepreneurship belongs to communities. And this is an amazing community that you're a part of here. And LinkedIn is also one of the best online communities that you'll find. So those are some things that I believe today. And that's another picture of me. And so in the next 35 or so minutes, I'm going to share everything that I have learned in the last almost 3 years to save you time, to save you energy, to save you money so that you can hit the ground running. And everything that I share is from the perspective of something that's worked for me or something that's worked for my clients. There's a lot here, so I'm going to do my best to get through all of it. I'm just going to keep a close eye on the time. I may have to move around some of the sections, depending on how fast we're moving through. And the other thing I'll say is I'm going to teach about 3 buckets about LinkedIn. I'm going to talk about mastering the platform. I'm going to talk about building community on the platform. And I'm also going to talk about mastering content on the platform. Okay. Alrighty. So first question is, why are people on LinkedIn? Historically, LinkedIn, the essence of the platform was really a job seeking, a networking. Someone mentioned in the chat, a professional platform. And that's true. A lot of people are still on there to advance their careers, find job postings, get a connection that's going to get them in with a company. And then also how it's really shaped and shifted in the last 2 years is it's really, people are on LinkedIn to learn things now. People want to improve their skills to get better jobs. They want to learn skills to make more money. They want to really it's a very growth-minded platform is what I've noticed about LinkedIn. So people really are on there to learn, to educate themselves, to upskill, to get value, and certainly to build connections and networks. So if you've got some sort of expertise, LinkedIn is really a phenomenal place to be. And of course, it is still true to its roots. There is a lot of job searching and networking happening on LinkedIn. So another good question to also start with is, who is on LinkedIn? And what I find fascinating is it's a growth-minded individual, but it's also an older-ish generation. So I would say 30 plus is a great target. A lot of senior level professionals, C-suite executives, very educated people. The average income of a LinkedIn user is very high. And what's also awesome about LinkedIn is because it's such a public platform, meaning that if you comment on something, there's a good chance your boss is going to see that, or your coworker is going to see that, or your old boss is going to see that. It's a very respectful community. So people are very supportive. People are very kind. I maybe twice in my entire nearly 3 years have gotten a rude or trolling comment because they're really, really good at not allowing fake profiles. So everyone is actually a human, which I really appreciate, because on other social media, there's so many bots, there's so many fake profiles. LinkedIn has done a phenomenal job of not allowing that. So it's actually a community of real, kind, supportive, uplifting people. And in my experience, they're very educated. They're very, like I said, growth-minded, and they're investing in themselves. They're investing in themselves to improve their life, improve their career. So with that said, if you are marketing to a professional of any sort, if you are marketing to a business to improve, to a business to do their marketing, any service-based business is really going to excel on LinkedIn. And that's just my experience. Okay, going to keep us moving. So the first piece of the workshop I want to get into is platform mastery. So what I'll say about LinkedIn is it's completely unique. It is, again, it's a professional platform, and it's got a steep learning curve. I will be honest. People are often very humbled when they get onto LinkedIn, because what works on other social media does not work on LinkedIn. You can't just copy paste your content from another place. The other thing I'm going to add is people do get really hung up on, oh, but this is a professional place and I can't necessarily tell my story, or I can't, talk about if I'm, a health coach. You'd be surprised at the types of creators that are coming on LinkedIn. So it's really expanded from, again, just boring corporate professional work things. It's really now become a quite personal storytelling platform, and all sorts of people are creating content. I'm going to talk more about my first business and how I ran that on there. So to continue on that thought, LinkedIn is not Instagram, it's not Facebook, it's not an email newsletter, it's not a blog site. So the biggest mistake that I see entrepreneurs make is they copy and paste their same content from Instagram right onto LinkedIn, and you will fall so flat doing that. And that's the biggest mistake I see. So it's really important to continue on through this workshop through the perspective of LinkedIn is really its own ecosystem, its own environment. And I'm going to teach you through the rest of this workshop how to create content specifically for this platform. So just having that perspective is going to save you a lot of time. It's really best to think about, okay, I need to specifically create and I need to specifically message. I need to specifically brand myself on LinkedIn versus the other social media platforms that I'm on. The next thing that's unique to LinkedIn is the selling that happens is very social. So a lot of times my experience on Instagram has been stories of people promoting things, people selling courses, people enrolling their groups, people talking about their services. LinkedIn is very, very different because LinkedIn is very smart and people want to learn things. The selling happens through social selling. So when I started just giving away all my value and teaching away all of my best things that I usually reserved for paying clients, that was when I really started to make money on LinkedIn. And the algorithm on LinkedIn is such that if people find something valuable and useful and they're reading it and they engage with it, LinkedIn is going to push it out further. So I very rarely do direct promotional, hey, I'm enrolling clients, or hey, I'm a coach and I do this. It's really, I am selling through educating my audience and teaching them things, and also, again, building connections. The last piece I have here on LinkedIn is just the total abundance that there is on LinkedIn. I don't think people understand how much of an untapped market it is. When I started creating on LinkedIn, it was just access to literally millions of people that had never really known about my work. And so there's so much abundance. There's so much to go around. I just can't even tell you how many businesses and people there are that are struggling, that are looking for solutions on a place like LinkedIn. So I still think I will say 2 years ago was definitely the best time to be on there. If you're getting on now, you're a little bit late, but there's still an abundance to be had and there's still so much to go around. So that's what I'll say on that. So to review, it's its own social media platform. Selling happens through content and through really teaching and showing your expertise. And there's just so many people struggling on a platform, LinkedIn, that need solutions and need help. So now I'm going to talk about the community of LinkedIn. So I would say of all the social media I've been on, and I also say this as someone that was really consistent and had actually invested quite a bit of money on growing my business on Instagram. I had invested in Instagram coaches. I was posting stories every single day, photo pictures every day. And so I've given most of the social media a really solid effort. But in my experience, LinkedIn, I would say, is the most community based of all the ones that I've existed on. Really, the gold happens in making valuable connections and having people come onto your content, which we'll continue to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about LinkedIn is the biggest mistake I see people make is they just post on LinkedIn and then they go on with their day. They don't actually understand the value of really building connections and really trying to meet other creators and meet other people posting on LinkedIn. Your content will go nowhere without engagement. If there's not a conversation happening underneath your post, LinkedIn just isn't going to push it out. So I don't recommend going at LinkedIn alone. There's how many of you here? A whole bunch of you, 23 people here. Make friends with each other, add each other on LinkedIn. You can always add me as well, but do not go at LinkedIn alone. When I first started, I got like 4 or 5 friends and I was like, hey guys, I want to try out LinkedIn. Are you guys interested in jumping on too? If you don't have some people supporting your content, it's just not going to go anywhere. And when you first get started, it's really, really important to get that early traction. And with that said, here's an example. This is the exact same post. The first post, I had no friends. I had no idea what I was doing. 3 people liked it. 600 people saw it. The second post was still pretty early on, but I had started to learn that, you have to make friends. That more than doubled the reach and engagement once I started to have community around me. So you have to be building community on LinkedIn. And I'm going to talk more about that next. I had no idea what I was doing here. So I would say this is probably the best thing about LinkedIn at this moment is because there are so many people already on there with existing audiences. You can take advantage of the audiences that people already built by borrowing their audience. And what I mean by that is you want to think about, let me actually look in the chat what kind of businesses we have here. I think I saw some. Okay, creative director, digital consultant.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of marketing people, paid media agency, brilliant. So you're going to want to think about who is someone that does something tangent, who is someone that does something similar to me but tangential. So if you're a paid consultant, you might want to reach out to organic social media agencies and be commenting on their content. How I did this was I used to be a dating coach for corporate women, life and dating coach for corporate women. And I met and connected with a woman who was a imposter syndrome coach for high achieving career women. So she helped them, ask for more money, get promoted. It was brilliant because we did very similar things. We were coaching the same type of audience. So, it may be for you, it may be you work with a similar size business. And what was great is I just started commenting on her content. She would comment on my content. We became friends. We would DM. So anytime I was up in her content, her audience would see my stuff. And I can't tell you how much business I got from just tapping into her existing audience. And because if you haven't started on LinkedIn yet, there's already a ton of creators very active on here. So you're going to want to strategically think about who is someone that does something similar, but different, that I can connect with and build a community with and start to, build a professional connection with. Be on their content, their people will start seeing your content. So it's a phenomenal way to do that. There's so many creators, again, on here. So a lot of my early business came from borrowing the audiences of existing creators. And listen, they're going to do it to you too. They'll comment on your stuff and then your audience is going to see their stuff. So it's an exchange that's happening all the time. I've mentioned a lot about comments. So what's great is if you don't necessarily want to be creating content yet, you can still build a really amazing funnel if you have an optimized profile by leaving comments. This happens all the time to our clients. This would happen all the time to me. If you leave very thoughtful comments on other creators' platform, your comment will get upvoted or liked, and you'd be amazed at how many people can start to come over to you from leaving a thoughtful comment. I literally booked one of my first sales calls with a woman that said, "Oh, I saw your comment on Jennifer's post, and then I went to your profile and I realized I was struggling in dating." So comments should not be overlooked. Comments are still a part of my strategy to this day. I leave at least 5 to 10 comments every day before I even post my own content. Amazing. And I think I've got a slide to show this. Yeah, so this is an example of a comment I left 13, and I should have taken a screenshot. I don't. I literally had a comment go viral once. I had 850 people like one of my comments once on a big creators post. So this is just an example. 13 people liked it. A bunch of new people came over to my audience. If you don't want to create yet, but you want to start building community, just start by leaving comments first. And then once you get that into a rhythm, you can start posting. But even if you are posting, no matter how big you get, make sure commenting is still a part of your strategy. It's a literal funnel to people for people to find you. Okay, so to recap about the community, your content is nothing without engagement. Do not do LinkedIn alone. Find some friends or spend some time really intentionally connecting and meeting people before you start posting. Think about who is doing something similar so that you can borrow their audience and give some of your audience away. And don't forget to leave comments. Yeah, I love it. Definitely connect with each other. So important. Okay, so around this part of the workshop, I typically start to feel some objections like, okay, Melanie, this sounds great, but like this still feels overwhelming. Or you like to write, so of course LinkedIn was fun for you. If you're feeling that way and this is already feeling like a lot, I promise it does get better. So stick with me through the rest of the presentation. And I won't lie, there is a steep learning curve on LinkedIn, but hopefully after today, you leave feeling excited and like you've got some confidence and some tools to use. Okay, so now we're going to go into content. This is the meatiest part of the workshops. So let me see where we're at. We're doing pretty well. I'm going to move quickly through this because again, there's a lot, but I'm going to talk through my pillars of thought leadership. And then I'm going to talk about 5 ways to create content that converts on LinkedIn. So this looks like a lot. I'm going to go through it quickly and we'll go from there. So I believe being a thought leader really comes down to creating compelling, memorable, relatable content. And so how do we get that? I'm going to break this down. So we create compelling content by creating content that's really contributing to people's lives. It's really changing their perspectives. It's disrupting their patterns. It's adding value to their lives. It's teaching them things. We also create compelling content by really positioning ourselves as the expert. You are giving away content as someone who's walked the walk, talked the talk, is the authority, is the expert. And I also think we create compelling content by showing someone, okay, I've been in your shoes, I'm relatable, I'm trustworthy because I know what you're going through, and now I can guide you through this transformation. So how do we get that? I think, which we're going to talk about as we keep going, really to stand out in your content, you've got to be willing to be a little bit polarizing. You've got to be a little bit provocative and really share something that you strongly believe. And I'll show some examples of how I've done this. And you can do that a few different ways. You can do that through vulnerability. Vulnerability, especially on a place like LinkedIn, really cuts through the noise. If you're willing to be a little bit vulnerable and a little personal and share like, hey, I actually failed in my first business, and these are the lessons that I've learned. I'm not kidding. I booked one of our highest retainer agency clients from sharing about really tough lessons I learned in my first 2 businesses. So a little bit of vulnerability will go a long way and will really provoke the audience into feeling something. It will touch a chord with them. We also are polarizing by taking a stand. What do you believe? Like I bet you anything. If you've run a business or really have been a human in life, there's things that you believe in. There's things that you know to be true and things that you know to not be true. So when you take a stand like, hey, I believe this is what's going to work best. If you do XYZ, taking a stand for something will also cut through the noise. So for me, I had the belief that you didn't need a dating app to find a partner. And as controversial as that may not seem, it really stuck out because that is how people are taught to date these days. So that was something I took a stand for. And then confidence, building up that level of, belief in yourself and trusting like, hey, I've got the training, I've got the experience, I can confidently assert this opinion and this belief. We also create compelling content, I've talked a bunch, by actually adding value to people's lives. So we can add value through storytelling, through teaching lessons, by literally giving people the granular, this is how to do XYZ. When we give value, we want to make it really simple. We want to take all this expertise and brilliance that we have and make it really simple and format it in a way that people can read it and digest it. People then are going to remember it and keep coming back for more content. My biggest thing, we're going to do a little bit of this today, is learn the basics of copywriting. As soon as I learned actually how to about human behavior and how people make decisions, my entire business transformed. So if you want to start giving away value and really teaching people and becoming this authority and this expert, it's really highly advised to learn some of the basics about how people make decisions, and then teaching through lessons. And then lastly, okay, so this is an example. Nearly 7,000 people saw this. I can't remember if this was a post that someone booked a call from, but this is an example of just like, hey, use this checklist to prepare for your next date. I was helping one of our intensive clients create a post, use this checklist before you send out your next proposal. She's a marketing consultant, and she's also getting into coaching for founders. So this is an example of a value post. Last thing is consistency. I mean, both consistency and not just, showing up frequently, but I also mean consistency in your message. So as you'll see, I'm going to share more examples of my content. I was consistently talking about being a single woman in her 30s, dating. I was not talking about being married. I was not talking about intimacy. I was not talking about breakups. I was consistently talking about being a single woman, how to meet someone by dating. So it was very predictable. People knew what I was going to be talking about. Nowadays, I am talking about how to grow on LinkedIn. I am not talking about how to grow through Google Ads. I am not talking about how to go through TikTok. I'm not talking about how to build your email list. I'm consistently talking about how to grow on LinkedIn and how to build an audience here. So it's very predictable. So you want to be consistent in your message. And there's a lot about this, should you niche, should you not? That's a great debate of all time, but you want to predictably be talking about the same message and really know who your person is. So for me, my client now is people that want to grow audiences on LinkedIn. They want to make money. They want their businesses to grow. But before, my audience was single corporate women in their 30s. So think about who you're speaking to. And again, you want to be consistently adding value, not just every once in a while. Like you literally want to give all of it away. It's a really big mindset shift of like, oh, I want people to pay for this information. I kid you not, when I just started teaching people everything I knew, my income doubled, and LinkedIn was just the perfect place to distribute that content. So that was a lot. I'm actually doing great on time. All right, I'm going to keep cruising. So I'm going to talk about content creation one-on-one. And these are the 5 ways to really deeply influence someone to make a decision. So if as you start to think about, okay, how do I want to create content? What do I want to start posting about? I absolutely recommend writing down these 5 prompts, do some journaling on it tonight. Later, if you create from these perspectives, you will start to notice that your audience is very interested in you, following you, and probably will buy from you at some point. So I did not make this up. This is from Blair Warren's 5 ways to influence people, 5 deepest psychological triggers. I didn't make this up. I'm just, the messenger here. But I will say, you will see some examples. I have used all of these, and we continue to use these with both our content and our clients' content, and they work. So write these down. People will do anything for someone who encourages their dreams, helps them get over their fears, justifies their failures, confirms their suspicion, and helps them throw rocks at the enemy. Brilliant. Love the chats going on. Yeah, connect with each other. So great. Okay, so I'm going to get into these in more detail. So we see this one in marketing all the time. This is a really easy one. I would do this one a lot. I have a lot of coach friends who do this a lot. And I do this a lot now as well. I'm encouraging people, like, you can build a really successful business on LinkedIn. I'm encouraging that dream. So you really got to think about, okay, what is it that my ideal client wants? If you're in marketing, your business owner that you're selling to may just want campaigns that are super successful, that run without them having to think about it. Or if you're doing paid ads, the dream is to spend just a little bit of money and make a ton of money. So you got to really figure out what is their dreams. For my past clients, they really wanted the dream relationship. They wanted to meet someone. They wanted to find someone that was their dream. Apple does this really well. Nike does this really well. Nike is encouraging everyone. They can be an athlete. They can change the world with their talents. Just look around you. Everyone in marketing is doing this one. So leverage it, use it. This was one I would lean on a lot. Like, you're going to meet someone, act like it. You're only one connection away from meeting your future partner. So this is a really good one. I see this also in, like, you don't have to work the 9 to 5 anymore. You can run a business. How else do I see this one? Encourage your dreams. Oh, I have a friend who's a coach for creative people, and her whole platform is like, you can be a creative person and make a lot of money. So a lot of creative people often sell themselves up to corporate. She's like, you don't have to do that. She's like, you can make a very respectable living running your own business. I'll show you how. And she's the example of that, because she used to be a photographer and now she makes a lot of money. So I think you get the point. The next one, justify their failures. So if someone is stuck and needing a solution, they've probably tried a lot of things. I mean, we're all stuck in some way, shape, or form. And when you can justify their failures, this is a really great way to connect with them and empathize with them. So how do I see this one? Oh, I see this one a lot in content that's like, if you're working a corporate job and you're miserable, it's not your fault. You were sold the fake American dream, like, work really hard and then retire when you're 65. Actually, I had a hormone coach that we worked with, and we did this one. She was like, you're not crazy. It's actually your hormones are imbalanced. That's why you don't feel good. So when you can justify people's failures, so speak to the thing that they're either ashamed about or they feel like they're failing about, it can really connect an audience with you. I do this one a lot where I say, like, listen, LinkedIn, and it's true, LinkedIn is a steep learning curve. If you're trying to figure out LinkedIn on your own, you're going to struggle for a while. It's just the truth. So how would I do this in dating? Let's see. I would, this was a funny one. If you're really emotionally involved with someone at work, it's probably going to be really hard. And it's very normalized. The work husband, the work wife, if you're really involved with someone at work, it's probably going to be tough to meet someone out in dating. This one also was speaking to, there's just like a lot of dating advice out there that's really hard. Red flag this, red flag that. Of course you would be confused in that you don't actually know what you're looking for. So that was what I did for that. I think there might be one more. Yeah, I spoke to just like dating advice can be really counterproductive. So that's what I spoke to on that. All right, next we have helps them get over their fears. This is a really powerful one. I did this one over the summer, and the post did really well. So again, if you're trying to move someone from point A to point B, they've got fears in between getting there that are, again, that they're ruminating in. And if you help them see that, like, oh, it's actually not that bad, they're going to really trust you. So I see this one a lot with someone, a creator who wants people to leave their corporate job and start their own business. And he will create content of like, listen, don't worry about making $100,000. Just make your first $1 online. Here's a bunch of ideas. Because it's overwhelming to think I have to replace my corporate salary. He's like, no. Make your first $1,000. Here's how you do it. He does this really brilliantly. I did this over the summer. I made a post that said, if you're really afraid to share about your accomplishments and don't want to sound arrogant, here's how you can do that in a really tasteful way. And people loved it because people have a fear of coming off as a jerk or really full of themselves. So think about, what are the fears of your people? How can you create content that will help alleviate those? So, this was actually, so funny enough, this was actually a blog post that did really, really well. And then I made it into LinkedIn content. So a lot of my clients, they would really be afraid of opening their hearts again, of trusting someone again. And so I made this post, if you don't want to get hurt again, talk about these few things before you decide to be in a relationship with someone. So the blog actually did really, really well. That did decent on LinkedIn too. But again, you're going to want to think about your clients' fears. I don't know if I have another one for this. Oh, but you know what? I actually have a real life example for this one. I saw a billboard in the pandemic, an orthodontist, so brilliant. This is the most brilliant example of someone using this principle. It was an orthodontist during the pandemic, and it was a picture of a kid with a mask on. And it said something like, now's the perfect time to get braces, or something like that. And I just thought, that is so brilliant, because every kid's fear when getting braces is that they're gonna be judged or have a mouthful of brackets. If you've had braces, I had braces, it's awful. So what a brilliant way to say, like, listen, your face is going to be covered anyway, just get braces. And I just thought that was such a good example of that. So you want to think about, what are the fears of your person or the businesses that you want to sell to. Okay, this one is similar to the one before, but it's a little more subtle. So it confirms their suspicions. I see this a lot with, again, coaches that are trying to get people to start their own business. I see it a lot in content that's like, actually, I saw a post just today about this. Like, listen, your job isn't safe. Your employer doesn't actually care about you. The raise that you're getting is not actually going to cover inflation. They're speaking to all these points that people are suspicious and worried about. And these creators are just putting it out there and again, offering a solution. So this coach, the post that I saw today was like, listen, your job's not safe. You definitely have skills in you that you could make into a business. Let's talk about that. So you'll see this a lot with companies that are trying to protect your data. You'll see ads that are like, your data is definitely being stolen. People know everything about you. Join our browser so that you're scrolling the internet safely. Again, you'll see this everywhere now. So what are your client suspicions? How we've done this is like, listen, Facebook is dead. Instagram is declining. Everyone's getting on LinkedIn. And actually it's true. LinkedIn has, I was reading an article yesterday, like 43% growth in the last year and a half. That's nuts. Every other social media platform is declining except LinkedIn. So I'm speaking to people's suspicions about that. How did I do that in dating? Oh, I did this in dating. Attachment style was very trendy at the time. So yeah, are you struggling in dating? Well, it might be because your attachment style is really impacting who you're meeting and how you're connecting with them. So that's an example of that. This one, we have a perfect example from the summer. The Barbie movie was a really great example of helping people throw rocks at the enemies. So this one's a very, very powerful one. You'll start seeing this one a lot too, my guess is. So on LinkedIn, people love to throw rocks at hustle culture, at working in the office, at the 9 to 5. You really can build a loyal following by figuring out what don't they like and throwing enemies at it. So for a while, Instagram was the enemy we would throw rocks at. Like, listen, you're not making money on Instagram. Instagram is making you do all these things you don't want to do. You want to be dancing, blah, blah, blah. So throw rocks at the enemies. And the Barbie movie was a great example of that, throwing rocks at, the culture that we live in and how that's impacted women. So you want to think about what your clients' enemies are. For some, you know, if you're doing paid ads, the enemy would be organic social, you know, and you're not getting the traction that you want. Or if you're a coach, how else have let me actually think about this. Oh, we write for a nervous system coach and a trauma coach, and she throws rocks at BetterHelp and all those like cheap free therapy because it's not actually getting you results. You have to work through your trauma with a qualified person. So we're throwing rocks at BetterHelp right now, which is pretty funny. And then we have another client we're writing for. We're throwing rocks at just the culture of not supporting your managers and giving your managers too much work to do and how they're overwhelmed. So this is a really powerful one. I'm sure you'll start to see more and more of it. Think about what your person, like what they're up against, and then throw rocks at that. Oh, that's right. I would dating apps. Dating apps were what I threw rocks at. So I just really firmly took a stand because that was my business. I would help women meet people without using dating apps, through networking, through loose acquaintances, through going to real events. So that was just a really powerful stand I took, and I would make this into blood. Like I doubled and tripled down on this. People really, anytime I would post about this, people loved it. So take a stand for what the enemy is, throw rocks at it. Okay, that was a lot. I've been talking for a while. So I'm curious, we went through platform mastery, community mastery, and now content mastery. So I'm curious, what are the gaps that you're seeing and how you're showing up on LinkedIn, whether that's how you're making connections, how you're creating content. You can internally write it down or you can share it in the chat, but I'm curious what's come up for you so far. And actually, let me put this back up.
I think for me, I have a hard time determining like what do people want to know from me. I think sometimes we don't even know exactly what is the information that we have to share with others, because I'll find myself typing out a post and then thinking, oh my goodness, no one needs to know this, or no one is going to care about this, is something that's really hard for me when I see so much good content on LinkedIn. I think I don't have anything to offer that's that interesting or useful to people.
Totally. The imposter syndrome on LinkedIn is real. And I haven't touched on this yet, but yeah, LinkedIn is a really visible place. Everyone is going to see your stuff, your old bosses, people maybe even when you went to high school with. So I want to acknowledge that, yeah, a lot can come up. It can feel like an intimidating place to start showing up. So you're definitely not alone in that.
And then in the
what I'll
chat,
say,
staying consistent, that's a big one too.
oh my gosh, I know people that hire us have such an advantage because we're just constantly creating content for them. Yeah, staying consistent is tough. Here's what I'll say to that is you can absolutely get away with posting 3 days a week. You do not have to be on LinkedIn 5 days a week. I did in the beginning, and that's how I grew really quickly. But now I show up 3 to 4 times a week. So if you can just commit to like, all right, I'm going to get on base 2 to 3 times a week, that's super, like you will grow. You will see results from that. So, you know, if it's helpful, don't put pressure on yourself to show up 5 days a week. Let me just make sure there's nothing else I have here. We did these 3. We're doing great on time. So I'm going to give you 3 questions to think about. You know, really ask yourself, what is your intention? Everyone's intention is a little bit differently. We have some clients that actually don't want to be getting new business from LinkedIn. They just want to have a really great brand and online presence, and they want to get booked out and speaking. So really think about, is your intention like, I want to be booking clients and closing deals, or I want to be speaking on stages, and because by the way, here's an experiment for everyone to try. Google yourself. I bet I would put $100 down that one of the first 3 things that pop up is your LinkedIn. So even if you're not trying to get clients, building out your LinkedIn, creating a couple of weeks worth of content, it's quite literally one of the first things that comes up. So it's wise to have some sort of presence there. But again, think about, what is your intention? Also, what is an action item you can take this week? I'll give you one. Absolutely connect with these people here at the workshop. Be like, hey, was that the Outset workshop with you? Let's keep in touch with each other. Make friends on LinkedIn. And then ask yourself, where do you need help getting most started? Is it like clarity on what I want to be creating? Is it clarity on my profile? Is it clarity on my content? Do I feel really nervous about writing and creating content? So some things for you to think about. I'm going to share lastly the way to work with me, and then we'll open it up for questions. We're doing great on time. So if you feel really jazzed up and you're like, wow, this is so interesting, I have not at all tried LinkedIn and feels like a really cool place to start beginning clients. You might be asking, okay, like how do I create these posts that Molly just talked about? Where do I find these strategic partners that I'm supposed to be borrowing audiences from and engaging from? How do I figure out what the consistent message is and what the post should be themed around? How do I get feedback on my posts to know that I'm on the right track? And how do I feel supported to create consistently? So there's 2 offers that my business has. We do both done for you, but we also do an intensive, which I want to share with you all here. So step 1 is connect with me on LinkedIn, Molly Godfrey. My company name is Build Impact Convert. I should be pretty easy to find. I post 3 to 4 times a week on how to improve your writing skills, how to create content, how to grow your audiences. Like I said, I give it all away. You can learn a ton just from reading my posts. So definitely find me on LinkedIn. But step 2, if you really want to hit the ground running, if you're clear your person is on LinkedIn and you're like, I don't actually want to waste time spinning my wheels trying to figure this out. I want support. And I really want to be, taking advantage of everything that's on LinkedIn. We offer 6 weeks of content coaching and support. So that includes 4 hours of strategy calls, a month of editing your content, giving you direct feedback, pulling out the parts of yourself that will make really interesting personal story posts. And I've got a testimonial here. A woman we worked with back in April, she made the investment back within like the first month. Someone joined her community. She sells like a high ticket community for professional. And, consistently, I talked to her last week, consistently getting DMs whenever she does a launch. So send me an email. Lindsay and I were talking, we're winding down for the holidays pretty soon. So we're probably going to take on 2 or 3 more people before we take off for the holidays. So send me an email, molly@mollygodfrey.com. We can chat through this and see if that's helpful and supportive so that you can just hit the ground running when you get started on LinkedIn. But the best way is just to reach out to me direct for that. And I will put back up the Venn diagram.
That was really helpful, Molly. Thank you so much. So we do have some time now, a little over 10 minutes for questions. I'm sure that we have some questions. You can drop them in the chat, and we'll see here what folks are wanting some more information about. I agree that staying consistent is really hard, as mentioned previously in the chat. So Molly, do you recommend just picking 3 days a week or just certain times per day? What do you recommend?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I typically do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday, Friday tend to be quieter, but I've also gone viral on a Friday. So, take that with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the other thing about LinkedIn I'll say is these don't have to be like super long posts. Some of those posts, I actually went very, very viral last summer. The post was like 10 lines long. It really wasn't that long. So if you're getting hung up, just remember for LinkedIn, less is more. Really, you can get away with writing like a third of what you would write for an Instagram caption. So if that feels helpful when you're getting started, but I'm a big fan of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Connect with these people to keep each other accountable. And also if you take a week or 2 off, it's not the end of the world either. So, be kind to yourself.
That's good to hear. And we also have some questions about the difference between posting from your personal account or your company account. So do you recommend posting content from your personal page or from your business page, or maybe some combination of both?
Yeah, it's a great question, Anna. I'm so glad you asked. So if you, let's say, so for me, everything runs through myself, and then we have a business page set up. So the general rule of thumb is unless your business page has 2,000 or more followers, do not post from it. LinkedIn, it's really a place for creators, not for businesses. So if you post from your company account, it's probably not going to get seen at all. So you post as the representative. Like people know me as the founder of my company. So you want, and this is also the same if you're running social media for a client or a company, have the CEO be posting, have the chief of staff be posting. You want to be posting from your personal profile, and the more people that see your content, they're going to come to your page and they're going to click into your company. Like our company page is getting followers every week because I'm posting, not because we're posting. But once you hit like 2,000 or so followers on the company page, it might have some legs to actually create some content on. So it's a great question.
Well, that is good to know, that you can kind of drive using your personal account, and you can probably use a little bit more maybe personality than you might with your business account, which is fun. And then Rob has a question about LinkedIn for a side project away from his paid gig. And he's wondering how you recommend proceeding with that, what a separate profile or clear business boundaries, or what if you're working on multiple projects?
Yeah, it's a great question, Rob. I actually don't think you can have multiple LinkedIn profiles. So that one might be tough. You may be able to have like one very dormant one. They're like I said, they're really strict about security and actual people being behind profiles. So for you, this comes up a lot. We did an intensive with a woman who was a life coach and still worked in a corporate role. And she actually just told her company, she was like, listen, I do this on the side. And what was so interesting is she would come into meetings and her coworkers would be like, we loved your post. So her coworkers ended up being really supportive. So my rule of thumb is you just let the company know, like, hey, I do this on the side. It doesn't interfere. I'm going to start creating content. Or you could also create content that, let's say, I'm just going to make up an example. Let's say you work in sales and your side business is you're a sales coach. You could just create content about being a salesperson or just even about yourself. So I didn't talk too much about this, but so much of the content that just does well on LinkedIn is the personal story of your story as the founder. So you could really create just like a very personal brand and then have people come to your profile and see like, okay, he does this on the side. I will say I've done, as I was transitioning out of coaching, I was also posting about writing. And so it is possible to have multiple things you're posting about. It's a good question. It's a good question for sure. To land on my rule of thumb is, if it's appropriate, give them the heads up or think about how you could create general enough content that could apply to both of the things that you do.
Yes, and someone else is saying that LinkedIn is prompting people to verify their accounts. So it might be difficult to have separate profiles. We also had a question about including call to actions when you're posting that's something for a value add or educational content. What do you think about including a call to action, or does it, do people not seem to like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say be mindful of it. Really my ethos when I started was I just like want to give away value and I want to teach and just, be generous with content. And then I would say after about a month of that, I would start to add in a call to action maybe twice a week. So think about it like a bank. You want to be making deposits in the value add bank. And then when you've done that, you can make a withdrawal and ask for something. That was just that's just my personal belief system about it. But when we write for clients, at least twice a week, we do create some sort of call to action. Like, listen, if this resonates, send me a DM. If this sounds like your diary, send us a DM. Or sometimes it's very specific. Like, I am booking out 2 more spots for my one-on-one practice. Send me a DM and I'll send you the link. So we do it sparingly, but definitely not on every single post. I do not recommend doing it on every post, is my personal opinion. And here's the other thing. Test it out. Everything that I've said, like, test it for yourself. See if pictures work. See if this works. Like, you're going to get feedback very quickly from LinkedIn, what people like and what they don't, which is the beautiful thing about it, I think.
That is helpful. Yeah, it's always good to experiment and test and see what works for your audience, because they're not all going to be the same. And then we have another question about embedding keywords in content for easy searchability.
That's a good point. Yeah, before we ever write for someone, we do a ton of research and we have them send over their client language and their client intakes and testimonials. So we do a lot of research to figure out like what people are searching for and how they're speaking about it. Here's what I'll say, Chelsea, to that. We're not like, not the level of some of the blogs I've written. It's you certainly can be mindful of it, but don't overthink it to the point where you're like, trying to squeeze every single keyword into a LinkedIn post. Definitely, be aware of them. But I would say, you don't have to, let me think if because I've done a search trying to find a LinkedIn post on Google and things come up. It's not a bad thing to be doing, but you don't necessarily have to be so hyper focused on making sure that every piece of content is filled with the keywords. Because here's what I'll say in my experience is someone will find one of your posts. This happens so many times. And then people will say, oh, I went through and I read all of your content, or I went and binged all of your posts. So if they can get to you, they're gonna just go and read everything else, is our experience. But yeah, if there's an opportunity, definitely add them in. Yeah.
And I guess the same, I'm of a certain age where I saw the rise and fall of hashtags on Instagram. And I'm wondering if it is similar on LinkedIn. How can you use hashtags? Do you use hashtags?
That's a great question. They actually, like literally last week, they got rid of them on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay.
So you won't, I read that in some sort of agency group, and it totally makes sense. I'm glad people were not, because they had hashtags set a certain way of being on other social media, then they came to LinkedIn, so they just got rid of them. So now you don't have to worry about it. But every single time I went viral, I never had hashtags on them. So I think that's what they realized and they got rid of them. But it's very new. So good question.
All right. Are there any other last minute questions for the chat? We have a few more minutes. So if anyone has something that they want to ask, now is your time. Of course, you can always contact Molly directly if you have a question that would be better suited for one-on-one. She did have her information on the screen, and I will include it in a short email that will go out after the conclusion of this event if you want to contact Molly directly. Oh, there was one more question. Do you post videos on LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's a great question, Teresa. So I'm actually about to test it. I just met up, actually, the imposter syndrome coach I told you about. We're now friends, and we just recorded in the studio like a 2-hour combo and sent it up to be editing. So I'm gonna test it. I do see them sometimes, but what I really appreciate is LinkedIn is not trying to be TikTok. So I'm gonna test probably like one video a week, but it's still not, text is still the favored medium. So it's worth, again, test it for yourself. I'm gonna test it too, but I would say it's still it's definitely not TikTok level. So you can still be writing posts and you'll do okay.
And I'm seeing that some people are sharing their LinkedIn to connect with other folks. Please drop your LinkedIn if you would like to connect with some of our other people here with us today. And then I guess one more. How do you, any resources for learning copywriting basics for beginners?
Yeah, let me think on that. What did I do? Honestly, if you search copywriter on LinkedIn, you'll get so many hits, and so many of them have courses.
Mm-hmm.
I probably don't have time to grab the link.
You can send it to me and I'll
yeah.
put it in with the email that goes out after.
I joined a lot of different like communities, and it was, to be honest, really self-taught. There's if you search copywriter, there's tons on LinkedIn. Their content is really great. I took like a couple courses. There's a book called the Ad Week Basics. I think that's what it's called. I definitely recommend that. There's some really good copywriting newsletters. Really, that's the thing, is copywriting hasn't changed in the last, human behavior hasn't changed in the last 100 years. So just any resources will set you ahead.
Excellent. And then we'll take our last question before we wrap up. Is it better to connect or follow? That is a good question. I never know when you have the option to follow them or send a request. What's the appropriate way to do that?
For me, like, I will connect with someone if I genuinely like either want to ask them a question or talk to them or have a Zoom with them, or potentially maybe, offer services to them in the future. So it's very intentional. I'm going to connect with someone that I want to have a real life conversation with at some point, or there could be the potential for that in the future. If they're just a big creator and I want to see their post, but I'm like, the chances of me actually talking to them are slim, I will just hit follow. So it's a good question. That's my rule of thumb for myself.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. I think that is perfectly on time for us today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. As a reminder, I'm Lindsay from Outsite. We offer co-living spaces, community, and resources for remote workers, entrepreneurs, and the like. You can check us out at outsite.co. And thank you all again for coming. It was so nice to have you. I'll be around for a few minutes if anyone wants to ask any questions about Outsite. But other than that, we are done for today. Thank you so much, Molly, for joining us. It was really lovely. I'm excited for my own LinkedIn glow up coming soon, hopefully. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their week and that you're having nice weather or a beautiful, cozy day wherever you are. And again, appreciate everyone coming.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, everyone. Great to meet you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. All right, if anyone has any questions about Outsite, I would be happy to answer those. You can also find us online at outsite.co. And all right, take care, everyone.